Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to go over some tips for getting your COVID test before coming to Korea so that you don't lose money. There is some mistake in some documents that can critically cost you, so I wanted to convey some advice that I got from a friend who recently came over to Korea. And second, remember the whole scandal surrounding President Moon, the former president, his wife's predilection for the finer things in life, namely her clothing and jewelry, and how that got her and the president into a lot of hot trouble. Well, it seems as if President Yoon's wife also likes the jewelry and nice clothes, and that's getting her into some hot trouble. And I just wanted to, speaking of like overpriced things, and to continue our conversation about the amazing benefits of treatment toner, whether this very expensive brand is actually worth it when you're going down that route, and some of my favorite summer scents for guys, or it could be for girls too, for the summer, because it's the summertime, and if you want to like spritz, like I have some of my all-time favorites that I wanted to share with you. All that coming right up. So in a nutshell, if you're coming to Korea, you do have to have a negative COVID test. And you can do that in a variety of forms, but the short answer is just do it at the airport. Why? Because the documentation at the airport is most likely 100% going to be accepted by the airline. And so there's this situation where if your documents don't align with what the airline accepts, because then it becomes a little bit more confusing because each airline might have a different standard. It might not just be the airport. So most likely if they're testing at the airport, they've done enough tests where if there's something wrong with the way that the airport is doing it, they're going to fix that right away. Now, you can get a test with your own medical provider, of course, and most likely if you have insurance, you are thinking you want to go that route so that you can save money. So I had a friend, he went to his doctor, paid $25 for the copay, which is much cheaper than what you would, have to spend at the airport, thinking that all would be good. Packed his bags, got all the stuff ready to come to Korea for an extended vacation, and boom, the airline says we cannot accept your document. And it's the weirdest because each different, office in America, this is from an American person, may have different kind of ways of making their form that says, okay, well, this person has tested negative. We accept now rapid tests and PCR. So most likely the PCR is going to be much more expensive than the rapid test. The problem on the certificate was that it did not have the version or variation of the word collected. They want to make sure that you as the patient collected the document in person at the doctor's office. And a long time ago they needed a stamp, but who uses stamps? But in this document it didn't have any variations of the word collected, and more concerning was that it had the word called, like the patient called, date, time. Now this was an LA hospital or clinic, and so that's such LA speak because like that mainly meant the appointment time when they used called, but the airline thought that like, oh, you just called it in, or like you weren't there in person, like we can't accept it. And that is just literally a difference in translation. And translating LA Hollywood speak, your call time is essentially like what time you're supposed to be on the set, if you're like an actor, or if you are required to be, doing some sort of like TV or movie shoot. So I guess maybe that's why they use call, because maybe they thought all their clients were like in the business and they would understand like not appointment time, your call time, because I think actors and people in Hollywood, they'll take it more seriously if you say call. call time, but that's just me surmising. Anyhow, so because of that, he missed his flight. Then he had to pay, they waived the fee for changing the flight, but you know, when you change a flight, sometimes the flight that you have to board is more expensive. So he had to pay $500 extra. Not only that, that PCR test or the rapid test had expired, and so he had to go to another clinic and pay like $80 to do the test. So that added up to like $580 extra dollars that he did not have to pay. If he just had done it at the airport, it would have been much easier. Of course, check your airport to see what times they have available. Every airport is going to be different, and the results, like when they come out, might be at a different time. So for example, like I believe if you are leaving Korea and you want to get a PCR test, you have to go in the morning, and then in a couple of hours the results show up. You can't go in the afternoon and take it, because then that basically is a closed window. So that sort of sucks. If you, let's say you have a 10 p.m. flight, then what, you have to get to the airport like at 10 a.m. or noon, and then wait for your test results, and then wait until your flight. So that's the drawback of doing it at the airport, but at least you know that the document will be accepted. When you arrive in Korea, you also have to submit a negative test within 72 hours. And again, the easiest is to just do it at the airport. And now on arrivals, the PCR and rapid tests are available 24 hours a day in Terminal 1. And most likely you will be going through Terminal 1. Terminal 2 is essentially for our Sky Team, so Korean Air, like basically like owns the joint, and then also all the Sky Team partners like Delta and Air France, they work out of Terminal 2, and their arrivals testing schedule is basically from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. So still a pretty long window, but if you can't make it by then all you need to do is take a quick tram ride to Terminal 1, and then you can just do your test and just get it over with. Why? Because maybe you can find on the list of recommended providers that the Korean government gives to incoming passengers a cheaper place. But my friend went to Gangnam Severance, which is like a university hospital, and he paid 270,000 won, or about like $270 for that test, where it could have been 80,000 won, or about $80 when he just arrived, and could have just done it really quickly and conveniently at the airport. When you leave Korea, if you need a PCR test, it's a little bit more expensive for foreigners than Koreans by about $10. And it also depends on weekdays versus weekends. But essentially, if you are a foreigner and you test on the weekdays, it's 74,000 won, like $74, or 80,000 won on the weekends, which is about $80. Well, not even, because the exchange rate is crazy right now. If you're spending money in Korea with US dollars, you are literally getting like a 30% bonus on your money. Of course, you know, summertime, like a lot of people come to Korea, so definitely don't let this document from the way that your own just doctor does things, you know, hinder you from getting onto your flight safely. Okay, I think we might have a First Lady Fashionista Syndrome here in Korea, because remember, President Moon's wife, definitely towards the end of his term, was getting all sorts of accusations of spending government money on her high fashions, basically because she says that she's the First Lady and she's attending all of these events. Well, now that kind of scrutiny is going on to the new First Lady, President Yoon's wife, who said that she was not going to officially be the First Lady. So she has no First Lady's office. So that's different. And she says she's going to stay at home. So that's different. And we've seen her in a very casual kind of like housewife type of attire when, you know, especially when she's like saying, goodbye, honey, you know, enjoy your time at the office. And she's wearing like very kind of like internet only clothes, and like they've been selling out whenever she like comes out in an outfit. But like I said, she's slowly trying to, I think, adopt a little bit more of the first lady role. People were looking at her fashions like when she was going around visiting the other former first ladies here in Korea who are still alive. But the thing that really blew up the Korean netizens and news cycles was her expensive jewelry when she was going to Spain for the NATO summit as the first lady and also President Yoon's wife. So like I said, in those big situations where the first lady is almost needed there like diplomatically, she'll go. So that's kind of like the gray zone of the kind of agreement that they made with the people, because she's so controversial about like still things that are not resolved about her past, like, you know, how did she make her money, how did her mom screw people over or not, you know, in business deals. So this particular pendant is about $60,000 or $70,000 apparently, and people are like, whoa, what the heck is she doing wearing a $60,000 $70,000 necklace? It is called the Snowflake pendant, and it's designed in the shape of a snowflake crystal, and it has platinum and diamonds. There's a large size and a small size, and so the small size is about like $60,000 and the large size is about like $160,000. So people are saying like it looks like it's the smaller size, and she wore it prominently with a fusion hanbok dress, like black and green, at a function for overseas Koreans. And that's very popular. Like every time a president goes around to a different country, he meets with like the overseas Korean groups. There's always these associations, and they're all kind of like extensions of the political power game, you know, of Korea. And so that's why, you know, it's important to meet with them because they also vote. And so she met with them, and then like people are like, oh, look at that necklace, and you know, she's wearing like very fancy designer brands for all of the other functions when she was at the NATO summit. I mean, she looked beautiful, she looked gorgeous, fashion. I mean, like, you want the first lady to look like that. However, she kind of like seemed like she was going along the playbook of Evita, you know, when Evita went on her world tour, and then it's just like, and I think she had Dior and Ferragamo and stuff. And so, and of course, Dior was the dress that Kim Gun-hee wore to her husband's inauguration, President Yoon's inauguration. And so she's no stranger to Dior and high fashion brands. And so they were scrutinizing the necklace. Then they were also scrutinizing a 4-leaf clover bracelet. And, you know, news medias don't like to say like, oh, like the brand, because it's making, you know, accusations that they're accusing. But that pendant was from Van Cleef and Arpels, I think. You know, when I looked it up, it looked similar, and it's sold out, so you can't even get it. And so the price didn't show up. And then also this 4-leaf clover bracelet is about $4,000. That I think you can still get. That's also from Van Cleef and Arpels. Then she was criticized for wearing this tennis bracelet that I don't know which brand it is, but it's not sold anymore apparently. But at the time it was sold, it was about $16,000. And so people were just like, dang, she spends a lot of money. Like, you know, she likes that jewelry. And so, you know, before I was like, oh, maybe she's not greedy, but I don't know. She likes her jewelry. She likes her clothes. And, you know, people were saying like, is she though styled by a team? Like, you know, is she sort of kind of like not being forced to wear it, but, you know, heavily encouraged? No, she styles herself, apparently. They have released statements saying, like, no, she has no style team. You know, we're not spending money on a style team for her with government money. She styles herself. And she definitely seems to have her own style. Like, she definitely seems to know exactly what she's doing with her fashion choices, which in general I think are good. And when she went to Spain, she also visited a Korean market, and she wore yellow and blue in solidarity with the Ukraine situation. And so I think she is a very fashion forward. They also made note of an anklet that she wore. And I think she's the first lady who's ever worn an anklet, definitely in public. It was a gold chain, but this one was by a jewelry startup. So people are saying like, yeah, she supports smaller businesses as well. And it's estimated to be about $300. So then the question is like, should she be able to use her own money to, buy whatever she wants to? Or should she really think about the plight of many Korean people who are struggling? And so, being all Evita-like while people are starving is not the best look. That's kind of some of the debate, because in Korea, if you're wondering like to what degree does this kind of like jar people's psychology here in Korea? Well, on the one hand, there is a contingent saying like, she should not be like dressing like she a fashion model and spending all this money when people are struggling. She should try to support small businesses, mid-sized businesses, startups, in fashion. And President Park Geun-hye, remember she was carrying a bag and people were just like, where's that bag from? And they're like, oh, it's from like a startup. Well, not all startups are. Just because it's a startup doesn't mean that there's also not some shadiness going on. Remember that who owned that startup? It was the gigolo boyfriend of her best friend who also went to jail with her. So yeah, not all startups are startups, you know what I mean? But in general, I think it was very important that she had some jewelry and some, some bling. Because, jewelry, I think, especially for women, kind of gives a sense of power, respect, and confidence, which I think she's lacking a lot because, she's been so criticized. And I don't think it's unwarranted. I mean, you reap what you sow. But I think it kind of like did give her some of a lift. But if there is kind of like a lesson here, I think it's just kind of like, it goes to show you that, what you may be able to get up there, but can you stay there? You can try to use all sorts of tricks to get up there, but can you stay there? You may spread your legs to get up there, but they ain't wings. You can't keep flapping them and they're not going to keep you up in the air. So you have to have some sort of character, I guess, in order to be able to, really, when you're at the top, like whether you're going to have any legitimate place there. And so I think that's mainly the thing that Korean people are still kind of like upset about or wary about. I know she has a fan club, but this one girl like, on YouTube is keep quacking about how she has a fan club. But yeah, so there's people who like her and think she's beautiful, and she is beautiful, but I think it really does, there's still this lingering resentment with Korean people thinking like, gosh, like we don't want her to be the face of Korea. On the other hand, that is a lot of faces here in Korea, and we need to face up to the fact that there are a lot of times limited choices that women can make. And if you are ambitious in that way, that is a route that exists and has negative consequences that I think we have to face up to here in Korea, and not just try to pretend that like it doesn't exist and that, she's the one that brought it a little bit more in our faces. Maybe we shouldn't blame her so much, but she still has not basically paid the piper for like all of the things that she's like the things. And then it also seems as if very clearly that the things that her mom did was really brushed under the rug, especially after her husband came to power. And her mother definitely was prosecuted, and it was a real shady thing where she wasn't exonerated. Her case was just suspended for years without end. So what do you think? Do you think that she should just wear her jewelry? Like, like where did she get the money for that jewelry? Or do you think she should be a little bit more cognizant So now let's get to our K-beauty review. So this treatment lotion by La Mer, you know, like of Creme de la Mer, was a cult item a few years ago where you couldn't get it anywhere in Korea. No department store, no online, not even duty free. Like all the fashionistas here in Korea wanted a piece of this, and even Kun Hee was a brand ambassador, so you know, even for the guys, they were promoting it. And again, this is like the toner that you use not on a cotton pad, but you put it on your hands and then you create a moisture base for your face. Is it worth it? It was super expensive. I don't think it was as good as the Amore Pacific. The Amore Pacific, I still think that is the best treatment toner ever. Would I turn this down? No. But would I pay for it again? Probably not. This is probably my first and last experience with La Mer. I think if you want to do, because I thought like, because they keep saying like there's like some magical broth of like nutrients that they formulate their things with, and the cream is just way too expensive. And also the cream, remember how you should kind of research like why and when and in what format they developed that cream. That cream was designed for people who had burns, and so it was to be like a salve, so it's very mineral oil based. And so I was like, mineral oil, that's gonna block everything. So like even if there's some like great soup of ingredients, like the mineral oil is just gonna block it from coming into your skin, and you might as well just use Vaseline if you're gonna go that route, and you know, which some people do. And so I thought like, okay, this would basically be the best carrier of whatever secret nutrients there are into the skin. And I would say like it did a decent job, but I don't think it was as good as the Amore Pacific, and that there was some kind of like a little bit of a barrier here. Like it felt like it didn't really absorb all the way into the skin. Although, wow, the hand test is nice. I mean, I wouldn't turn it down, but I think that it might be a little bit overpriced for what it's trying to do. Does this count as K-beauty? Is probably also something that you're wondering. I would say yes, because Korean beauty and skincare, we use all the brands around the world, and Korean consumers love to get their hands on anything that works and then incorporate it into the K-beauty regime. And so if it is super popular among Koreans, I would say yes, it counts as like part of the K-beauty family, but it's not a Korean product. So if you're wondering like in Korea, do we only use Korean skincare products? No, we don't. We like people love, you know, they still love their like Kiehl's, Estee Lauder, like Lancome, like, you know, foreign brands. But what you'll find is like what they gravitate towards is probably a little bit different from consumers in other markets. Number one, for men's cologne in the summertime that I love, a goodie and a classic, just takes you back to memories of the 90s, Eternity for Men. This is Calvin Klein, and it's just got that, you know, classic citrus kind of fresh summer mood. It's just a mood. And so, of course, you can get this everywhere, anywhere, and probably like even at like Ross or Marshall's. It's always there. Now, this is a little bit more of a cult or harder to find, and this I got years ago, so I've noticed that the packaging has changed as well. This is, I've never been able to pronounce this, but Ermenegildo Xenia. So Xenia, and this is the Mediterranean Neroli. This is essentially like going to the beach in a bottle, with the main thing being jasmine. So, you know, like a lot of the suntan lotions and sunscreens have that jasmine scent, but this literally makes you feel like you're on like the Italian coast on the beach. Ugh. And so people really like this. They say like, oh yeah, you know, like kind of like smell like what they would imagine maybe George Clooney smells like at Lake Como, in Italy. And then of course, this is just nostalgia. So those two are my favorite for the summer. I have another one that is great for summer, winter, almost all seasons, that seems to adapt to the season and kind of give it a special oomph, but I'll talk about that in another video. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think the fashion should be, kind of regulated with the First Lady, even though she's like not really been given the First Lady role? And are you coming to Korea? If you're coming to Korea and you are preparing your travel documents, let us know in the comments. Put your comments below, whatever you want to talk about. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.